Now, it appears that there's still a lot of people who struggle to truly think for themselves. And it's important that I make videos about this topic from time to time because in my opinion, independent thought, formulating your own conclusions on the basis of the information you take in, is essential to considering yourself a self-reliant person, not only in the physical preparedness sense, but in your ability to sift through the barrage of information that's out there today to formulate an opinion that you believe is just and moral. Now, I can give you a quick bit of advice with respect to how to decipher what's true and what's false. And because there's a lot of media agencies out there right now claiming to be alternative, claiming to be somehow outside the norm or non-mainstream, or claiming to not have an agenda or just have your best interests in mind. Well, I can tell you right now, if an agency is claiming those things, to have your best interests in mind and doing things just out of the goodness of their heart, for one, that's complete and utter bullshit. There is very, very few organizations, much less individuals on this planet, who are doing things just out of the goodness of their heart. It's a business. Media is a business, and people will serve their customers what they want to hear. When you go to a restaurant, you are served what you want. You're not served what the restaurant owner thinks is good for you and thinks is nutritious for you. They want you to buy stuff and they want you to feel satiated, so they provide you with what you ask for. And the same holds true for a lot of this so-called independent media nowadays. Now, to separate the fact from the bullshit, it's pretty simple. If a media agency seems to be defending to the death one perspective or one person, they always have an explanation for every possible aspect of a certain ideology, and they're always condemning another ideology, in spite of the fact that when analyzed by any scientifically minded analytical person, it's pretty easy to see how there are pros and cons to all ideologies, to the right wing, to the left wing, that being a moderate really is the most even-handed and level-headed, well-balanced, fair and balanced perspective that you can have. Now, there is a time and place for being on one of the other wings. Usually it's an attempt to counterbalance, or at least that's what people perceive it as an attempt to counterbalance the status quo as it currently is. So if society is overwhelmingly left-wing, then the counterbalance or the counterweight will be a right-wing insurgency. And the opposite will be true. If the right wing is the prevailing hegemony, there's going to be a left-wing insurgency, which is probably what you're going to see in the next 8 years happen. Now, what I'm saying is that left-wing or right-wing, it doesn't matter. If somebody is just defending to the death that one perspective or that one person who represents them, and they have this messianic complex with whoever their leader is, and they put blind faith in them simply because of the fact that they might agree with them on one or two issues, I can guarantee you that you're probably being exploited in some way. There's a variety of ways that these media agencies make money off of people believing and backing them. For one, it's mostly advertising, where they make tons of money. A real agency which was for the people wouldn't have to describe itself as such. So if there is a media which claims to be independent and they seek to really label themselves as such, they label themselves as like the resistors or something like that, it's probably bullshit. If you know what to expect when you go to a certain media agency and they give you exactly what you want to hear, chances are you're getting exactly that. You're being told what you want to hear, so you keep coming back to hear more and more of that. Just remember also that there's this thing called the digital bubble, and what it is YouTube makes suggestions on the basis of what you've already viewed. So your perspective is going to continuously be reaffirmed. You're seldom going to see something in your suggested videos feed which is too counter to your belief system, because YouTube wants you to watch more stuff. So it knows that you're not going to watch something which is counter. And I mean, me personally, I always try to watch things that are counter to my perspective just to challenge myself. But a lot of people try to avoid that because, you know, like my friend, All American Prepper, he avoids that at all cost. I'm sure he, you know, maybe we'll get his perspective on this at some point. Most people try to avoid that at all costs because it takes too much mental energy to try to integrate opposing views into your own and try to hear out the other side. It's just plain boring for a lot of people to do. So what you end up getting then is you constantly have your own beliefs reaffirmed. You click on one link that supports your worldview, and then that takes you to another link, and then you start thinking that everybody thinks the same way as you do. It's a bias that many of us have, that we think that what we see within our virtual bubbles is what everybody else sees. But you have to remember that that's individualized. So my search results might be a little different than your search results. My suggested videos are different than yours. Now there's also another aspect of this that involves preppers, and it's this Christian fundamentalist doomsday stuff. I'm sure it's present in other religions, the whole eschatological thing with the Christianity. I think that's how you say it, eschatology. But there's it's its own discipline, basically, the end times study in Christian fundamentalist philosophy. And you have these channels, and I'm just going to call them right out. Jason A is one of these channels. He puts out videos that it's not so much that the news stories that he picks up on are always bad, but sometimes he conflates blatant political issues with ones that are totally unrelated, like mysterious sounds heard around the world, and he'll mix that in with something to do with being pro-life. I don't really know how you can draw a relationship between those two things. Apparently, if you just throw some scary music behind it, that's enough to knit it all together. And of course, that is playing on people's emotions. Now, when I make a video like the After the Clap series, I'm dealing with facts. I'm dealing with theory. I'm not predicting that things are going to happen. I don't use titles in my videos that say 2017, you know, something strange is going to happen, and you know, the world is on the brink of a big change. Here's what it is. This kind of thing that those channels use, which totally seeks to exploit the fears of people who perhaps for whatever reason they've conceded their ability to think for themselves. Now, I'm not saying that if you have some beliefs about Revelations and, you know, the whole 7 trumpets and, you know, what is it called, the quickening and the end times and all that stuff, you know, there may be something to that. I don't totally discount that whatsoever. I think that, you know, it's an interesting thing to discuss, put it that way. But I would never fully get behind it just because some random YouTube channel out there was putting some scary music over top of different news stories that were happening, and use that as something to substantiate my beliefs. One thing I noticed about Jason A too is that for the longest time he had a Fox logo as an avatar, and if you don't know about the Fox logo, it's actually an inverted pentagram. There's a little occult symbolism for you, just so you know that I'm not totally anti-esoteric studies or anything like that. I'm open to hearing those things, but whenever a person speaks in absolutes, the way some of these so-called rebellious media agencies do, you can pretty much guess that they're trying to sell you something, because a truth teller would give you both sides of the story. A truth teller would be boring to listen to. They'd be very boring. I'm probably boring to a lot of people. I'm probably going to get a troll comment about that. That's fine. But they'd be very boring because it's non-sensational. You can only be sensational if you're touting one perspective with a lot of conviction. That's what people get behind. That's what whips people up into a frenzy and turns them into fanatics. And it makes it so that It gives you that little bit of that dopamine rush, that emotional rush that makes you really engaged in what you're doing, and you feel like you're a part of something. You don't get that when you're just looking at the facts, and that's why science is so boring, and a lot of people don't, care to concern themselves with it. But periodically, I like sharing my opinions on these matters, so let me know what you think in the comment section. A little more contemplative video for you today, but I think it's necessary in light of the media wars that are going on right now. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.